The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello there, and welcome from Studio 27 in Sacramento, California, and from our panelists in Huntsville, Alabama, New Hampshire, Toronto, and London, and to our audience across the U.S., Latin America, Canada, and the rest of the world, to today's webinar, 3D GIS on an Enterprise Scale, Designing Europe's Largest Infrastructure Project, sponsored by Oracle Spatial, with their partner Bentley, and featuring a fantastic case study by Crossrail. And of course, today is hosted by Directions Media, the voice of all things location. Hi again, I'm Mike Agron. I'm the executive webinar producer with Directions, and I'm going to be your moderator and one of your hosts. And we got a lot of great information and insights to share with you, specifically on how Crossrail, and you're going to learn all about this, which is the largest infrastructure project that's underway in Europe, how they're able to use a massive spatial data challenge and how they were able to overcome it. And you're going to hear that from Wayne Marsh on how his team grapples with this on a daily basis. And in just a moment, you're going to be hearing from our presenters. But first, I'd like to draw your attention to the right-hand side of the screen, and you can see some upcoming Direction Media events. And you can get more information on this by going to directions.com/webinars, and you can sign up and receive the Directions Magazine newsletter at the same time. We got quite an audience today, and we're thrilled that we have over 350 people registered from over 43 countries. And they happen to represent, or you in the audience happen to represent, over 22 industry segments. Folks from public sector, energy, transportation, consulting, education, and many other important sectors have joined us. And we're absolutely confident that regardless of your industry, your role, you're going to find some value in joining us today. And to that degree, we always encourage you to ask questions as often and as many times as you would like throughout the webinar. And here's what you do to ask a question. You should have on your desktop, your control panel here. If it's not open like this, click on the little double arrow here. And here where it says enter a question for staff, just type in your question. They'll come back in the queue, Nora will take them, and we'll answer as many of them as we can on air. And for those that we can't answer, we promise to have a subject matter expert get back to you as soon as possible. We're also going to have some fun with some polls. We got a couple coming up in just a moment. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand, and I'm going to ask you to vote in a poll. And to raise your hand, if we go back to our little panel over here, you'll see a little green hand. When I ask the question, and if you agree with it, just go ahead and click on it, and we'll get your hand raised. And then as far as the polls, I'll launch them. They're pretty easy to follow. Just click on which of the following you makes sense for you. We'll share the results and see how you compare with your peers on those particular questions. We're always asked, will there be a copy of today's recording? And the answer is absolutely. So you will all receive an email from Directions with a link to today's recording. So if you want to re-listen to it or share it with someone else, be our guest. And finally, we'd absolutely love to get your feedback on how today's webinar met your expectations. So you'll get a survey at the end of the webinar. It'll pop up in your browser. Take you just a few moments to tell us how we did. Well, let's get to our first poll. So here's what I'd like you to do. If you have any experience working in a 3D environment, go ahead and click on that little green up arrow and the hand, and I'll let the audience know where we're at, and then we'll go into our first poll. So I'm going to keep it open for just another moment, and I see quite a few people are voting. And okay, looks like everybody who's voted on this has. Drum roll, and 39% of you are in the affirmative, that you have experience working in 3D. Now we're up to 40%. Terrific. Thank you very, very much. Now what we'd like to do is launch the first poll and ask you, how are you using 3D data in your applications? And in this case, check all that apply. Is it for the first one, visualization only? Is it B, integrated with CAD analysis? Is it C, 3D spatial analysis? Is it LiDAR and point cloud management? Or E, we're not using 3D data? If you go ahead and vote, I see a lot of the votes coming in. I'll go ahead and share the results, and I'm sure Joe Francica, who's on deck, will have some interesting comments to make about them. So, looks like just about everybody has voted, and thank you so much for that. I'm now going to close the poll. Results are quite interesting. Let me go ahead and share that. So as you can see, 39% use it for visualization only. 23% integrated with CAD analysis. The most usage is 3D spatial analysis at 41%, 38% for LiDAR and point cloud, 31% are not using 3D data. Well, thank you so much for that information. That's going to be very helpful not only to Joe, but also to our other panelists. So I want to bring on my good friend, the Vice Publisher and Editor-in-Chief of Directions Media, Joe Francica, to officially welcome you, say a few words and what he hopes you'll get out of today. And Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mike, and welcome to the webinar today. I think it'll be a very instructive and informative presentation. I just want to remind everyone about some of the things that we offer here at Directions. We have a number of upcoming webinars, some of which you saw on our opening slide. To register for any of those, you certainly can go right to our website at directionsmag.com/webinars. If you're not currently receiving our daily Directions Magazine newsletter, please feel free to subscribe and join the over 100,000 people that read us every month. I'll also remind you about another upcoming live interview that we do regularly now called Directions On Point, and our guest will be Vanessa Lawrence, the Director General of the Ordnance Survey in the UK. I'm sure you won't want to miss that interview where individual attendees can ask live questions. I did want to take an opportunity to talk about what is going to happen in today's webinar, discuss some of the high points and takeaways. What we're really going to focus in on is what it takes to tackle a massive 3D engineering design project. Many of you are engaged in this type of activity, both in integrating 2D and 3D data. But one of the more important issues that's arising to our radar screen and an editorial focus is something we call big data. You may have referenced this before in articles. We have even started a separate RSS feed from our website that looks specifically at giving people resources to defining big data. And in many ways, big data is what Oracle is doing today, and Jim Steiner will have a little bit more details about that. But from our perspective, this engages a lot of different data types, from raster to vector to LiDAR point clouds. We're talking about the integration of many, many different data types in a very large project. What do we mean by a large project? It isn't maybe just 50 people in a work group. We're talking about contractors, mobile field personnel. It could be as many as thousands of people who are engaged in a rather large project. And that's why we invited Crossrail to this presentation today. They're a shining example of what a massive engineering project is and how it is managed through a variety of different tools, both Oracle Spatial and Bentley Systems tools. You'll hear that from both of those organizations currently. But in general, it's also going beyond the current finishing and completion of data management and getting information to people. It's asset maintenance and beyond. What happens after the project is completed. And that's what you'll hear in a very nice workflow presentation today. So those are our takeaways, and I hope you will enjoy the presentation. I did want to briefly go through the agenda today. We're going to hear from Jim Steiner, who's the Vice President of Product Management at Oracle, then from Keith Raymond at Bentley, who is project manager, who is a product manager for Bentley, and then our case study, Wayne Marsh, who is the Crossrail GIS manager. Finally, we'll wrap up with a Ask the Experts panel. It's our Q&A session, which all of us will be able to present to answer your questions. And please feel free at any time, as Mike had mentioned, to insert your questions into the question box. We'll get through them and field them at the very end. So sit back and relax and enjoy today's presentation. Mike, I'll now turn it back over to you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Joe. It's great to have you back. So folks, let's get started. This is really an exciting panel. And as I mentioned earlier, Crossrail It's currently the largest infrastructure project that's underway in Europe, and it's a massive addition to London's transportation network. And when it's completed, it's going to carry 200 million passengers each year, and part of the project includes twin-bore 23-kilometer tunnels under central London with interchanges to the existing rail network. So we're going to hear a lot about this, but to start, we're going to hear from Jim Steiner, then Keith Raymond from Bentley, and then Wayne Marsh from Crossrail. But there's three things we want you to focus on, and this reinforces what Joe just said. First is how Oracle Database enables management and integration of 3D geospatial data across the enterprise. The second is how Bentley solutions are used as part of the value chain in the world's largest infrastructure project. And finally, how Crossrail incorporates 2D and 3D geospatial data and analysis into its enterprise business workflows. Most of you who have been on our webinars before with Oracle know Jim Steiner. He's a good friend from New Hampshire. And as Joe said, he's VP of Product Management Server Technologies, where he's responsible for Oracle server products. And he supports the rich media and location service technologies that are used in internet, mobile, content management, e-business applications. Jim, delighted to have you. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thanks, Mike. Felicito de Mayo. It's great to be here again. I always enjoy these directions webinars. The last few webinars we've done with you guys have highlighted how Oracle Spatial and Map Viewer technologies are used in BI and in Oracle's business apps. The last one discussed a groundbreaking utilities outage analytic application. This kind of seamless integration of location intelligence into out-of-the-box business apps is one of the really important new developments for mainstream geospatial solutions. And today, we're excited to be going in a bit of a different direction. We're going to be sharing a story about a significant and impressive infrastructure project and how Oracle spatial capabilities are being used to manage a wide range of spatial data. As you're going to hear, Crossrail uses Oracle Spatial to share 2D data and is also managing 3D and other advanced spatial data structures. As has been said already a couple of times, and I think we're going to hear a bunch more, Crossrail is a huge integrated operational system. And big is something that Oracle does really well. We're all about big databases, big applications, big systems, and of course, the largest geospatial implementations in the world. It's the scale of the problems that many of our customers face. It's one of the key drivers for what we do with our spatial technologies. One of the things I am often asked about, particularly by the GIS customers in the world, is why Oracle even has advanced geospatial features. And the main reason is that our technologies are designed to manage huge volumes of machine-generated data that are being produced at an increasingly rapid rate. Modern infrastructure projects are fueled as much by data as by manpower and heavy equipment. So what we do is we apply database benefits to fundamental data management challenges so that we can remove the artificial scalability boundaries that are often imposed on GIS users working on projects of this scale. This means we've created a data management and analytic infrastructure to handle raster imagery with single images of, bigger than a terabyte, and logical raster and gridded data sets of petabytes. We can address the needs of complex network applications requiring billions of nodes and links with millions of graphs. We support operations with an analysis of topological data sets that support data validation for seamless national data sets. Oracle Spatial also enables geocoding, routing, and mapping on a single data set, not just as a function, but also as a callable integrated set of features in the geospatial server. And it's the only database solution with native 3D and point cloud support to allow terabytes of point cloud data to be indexed and analyzed. All of this is to make it possible for our customers and partners to implement integrated operational systems like the one you're going to hear about today. Together with Bentley Systems, and Bentley is a partner that we have worked closely with for over 15 years, actually since the very first releases of Oracle Spatial. So they kind of know the experience and the system warts and all. And together with Bentley, we're providing technologies to manage a truly monumental civil engineering project for Crossrail. The explosion of 3D data, LiDAR, commercial 3D cities, terrain, subsurface models, all these kinds of things enable new classes of analysis and visualization. And this reduces costs, improves efficiencies, and increases accuracy. Improving workflows and bridging the gap across BIM, GIS, and CAD are reasons that 3D is so important for the Crossrail project. To address these needs, Oracle's added native 3D capabilities to the most recent releases of Oracle Spatial. We have special data types, indexing, and analysis capabilities for 3D solids, for point clouds and LiDAR data, and TIMs to support DEMs and DTMs. This includes EPSG 3D coordinate system support for vertical coordinate systems, geocentric, geographic, 2D, projected, ellipsoidal, and compound coordinate systems. We also support transforms across these different 3D coordinate systems. Our 3D query features support volumetric queries, visibility line of sight queries, and standard spatial and attribute queries on top of 3D data and with 3D data. And lastly, you can load, import and export standard 3D formats like KML, Collada, GML, and LAS into Oracle Spatial 3D structures using built-in utilities as well as popular industry and open source tools like SafeFME and LibLAS. So one of the things you're going to hear is how Oracle Spatial is used as a common platform for this project. That's something people do frequently. They use the Oracle Spatial technologies as a platform infrastructure. And as I mentioned earlier, Bentley Systems has understood what is uniquely possible with Oracle Spatial technologies for many years. Products like Bentley Map, ProjectWise, GeoWeb Publisher, and Geospatial Server, just to name a few, exploit the advanced 3D versioning, topology, and georaster features of Oracle Spatial. So it's no surprise that Crossrail, when faced with the challenge of designing and managing as what you have heard as the largest single addition to the London Transport Network in over 50 years, chose these technologies. You know, Mike, the reason we do these webinars is so participants can learn from real-world users facing real-world challenges. I know that the listeners today are going to learn a great deal from what Crossrail will be sharing with them. As well, you can also find out more about Oracle Spatial at oracle.com/go-to/spatial. This site has got white papers and customer profiles and partner information and more. Another great place to learn about what users are doing to solve their business and technical challenges is the Oracle Spatial User Conference later this month in Washington, D.C. Oracle Spatial customers are going to be talking about their projects in government, utilities, engineering, and the new technologies like cloud computing and, of course, Oracle's Exadata database machine and how that works with our spatial technologies. So we'd really love to see you guys there. So at this point, let me hand it back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Jim, and we'll have you back for the Ask the Experts panel. I'm now going to bring up Keith Raymond from Bentley, and we're now going to go up to Toronto. And just a little bit about Keith. He's been in the geospatial industry for more than 25 years, the past 14 with Bentley, and he's currently the product manager for Bentley's geospatial desktop products. And Keith, delighted to have you back. I'm now going to turn this portion over to you, and then we'll hear from Wayne Marsh on Crossrail.
Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it. And thanks very much to you guys and to Oracle for inviting us on this webinar today. I'll just go over a few notes about what Bentley's all about. We are a global company, obviously dedicated to providing leading-edge applications for sustaining infrastructure. And if we have a look at who our customers are, we have 20 of the top ENR firms, 97 of the top pure design firms, 47 of the 50 US DOTs. All of these customers use Bentley. Bentley products are heavily used in mapping agencies and all levels of government. Our customers are involved in designing, building, and maintaining the world's infrastructure. And our customers are the biggest companies involved in these tasks. For example, as we'll soon hear, Crossrail is building the largest infrastructure project in Europe. Bentley is number one in many facets of infrastructure engineering, including plant, structural, water modeling, road and bridge design, building performance. And I might also add that Bentley is a gold level partner that will be presenting at the upcoming Oracle Spatial Conference in Washington. Jim Steiner from Oracle discussed the drivers for 3D, including new and improved capture methods, mass market availability of imagery, terrain, city models, as well as general improvements in performance and scalability of the software solutions involved. All of these drivers enable the development and use of accurate 3D models, and Bentley provides the tools to build and maintain these 3D infrastructure models. So how do Bentley geospatial applications take advantage of these drivers? First, by leveraging state-of-the-art modeling tools to build the 3D infrastructure model. Bentley modeling tools use imagery, LiDAR, GIS, survey data, and more to build highly accurate 3D models of new and existing infrastructure assets. 2D and 3D representations can be managed at the same time and with the same tools. We'll see in the Crossrail case study that Bentley modeling tools work very well integrating CAD, GIS, and building information models. And in many cases, the model is stored directly in Oracle Spatial, thus taking advantage of what Oracle does really well, that is big databases, big applications, and big systems, and as well as security, reliability, and interoperability. So let's have a look at how the infrastructure model can be used. Urban design is a huge application. How does a developer's proposal fit in with the existing bylaws with respect to height and setback? How does it look compared to the mass of the surrounding buildings? If the area is historic, will the new development enhance or detract from the character of the area? As an example, the City of Toronto uses their 3D model to show proposed buildings in the context of the existing model for massing studies, visualization, and to determine compliance with the official plan. Feasibility studies incorporate a host of factors. For instance, what is the permeability of a site? How will it affect runoff? Will it tax the existing storm sewer system? What extra traffic is expected to be generated? Engineering company HNTB routinely creates LiDAR models of their project areas for documentation and to use in design. HNTB recently did a highway widening project on I-405 in California, where they used LiDAR and 3D modeling extensively to help align the on and off ramps, widen underpasses, and also to mitigate the trees and wetlands that would be destroyed by that widening. This project integrated existing designs, GIS data, LiDAR, and aerial photography into a complete 3D model of the project. 3D analytical tools can also be used to assist in urban planning applications. I think I recall at the beginning of this webinar, we saw that 41% of you were involved with 3D analytical tools or applications. In particular, collision detection can be used to determine intrusions into protected sight lines or no-fly areas for airports or helicopter landing pads. When planners in Helsinki had to assess the visual impact of a new bridge, they needed to know from how far away that structure would be visible. The bridge was quickly modeled with lights placed at the top of the towers, and then a calculation was done to highlight all of the areas of the city from which the lights would be seen. This simple operation, which took just a few hours really, would have taken weeks using on-site surveying techniques. The same visualization tools, I think at the beginning of this webinar as well, that 31% of the people mentioned that visualization was a big part of their workflow. The popularity of Google Earth means that casual users have an intuitive tool in which to view the infrastructure model in the context of existing terrain, imagery, and even simplified 3D city models that they can find in the Google Earth client. Virtually all 3D model users take advantage of the Google Earth integration. I haven't mentioned shadow studies. That's also a huge application. The City of Montreal uses their model for visualization purposes and shadow studies, but they'll soon be adding high-resolution photography that will be mapped onto each building face to enhance the realism. Let's have a quick look at the Bentley geospatial architecture, and especially as it relates to Oracle Spatial. The Bentley desktop products, such as Bentley Map, can access the 3D database directly, as we see over here. Many of our customers use the geospatial server to access the database in a long transactional mode. They also use the geospatial server to store information such as documents, the project number, work order, dates, and more. But the geospatial server also stores the geospatial location, so an actual location for the documents. In this way, all documents pertaining to work at a particular intersection, for example, can be queried spatially and located without any knowledge of specific job or work order numbers. And lastly, for web clients, the GeoWeb Publisher tool is used to make any of that spatial information and documents available to web clients. We recently worked with Sissy Zlatanova from Delft University in the Netherlands, and here's what she had to say about Bentley's approach to 3D GIS. And lastly, here are a few customers implementing Oracle Spatial in a 3D environment. Crossrail, of course, from which we'll hear just directly next. And many cities are moving beyond 2D mapping and infrastructure management to full 3D modeling. And just to wrap up, before I turn it back to Mike, we discussed how Bentley tools leverage the various sources of data to build and maintain the 3D infrastructure model. We looked at some of the applications for that model. And we finally looked at how Bentley products work with Oracle Spatial to maintain and manage that model. Thank you very much, and back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Keith, and we'll have you back in just a moment. And now we're going to bring up Wayne Marsh, the Crossrail GIS manager. And let me just give you a little background on Wayne, who is in London right now. And Wayne, thanks so much for being with us at this late hour. I know it's in the evening for you. Wayne started his career studying digital mapping as a postgraduate at Glasgow University. And his first key appointment was working for the Saudi military on a major mapping GIS project. When he came back to the UK, he worked for the Cook Hammond and Kell Group, where he was the prime CAD GIS manager. He moved to Crossrail and then became their GIS manager and lead and develops the geospatial infrastructure for the largest construction project in Europe. And Wayne, you know, we had a lot of fun during the development of this webinar. You are very excited about this project, and we'd like you to lead off the discussion. Tell us a little bit about Crossrail, and as I said, your excitement certainly was contagious to all of us behind the scenes, and we hope that the audience feels the same. So, Wayne, I'm now delighted to turn this portion over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Well, I hope my excitement comes through to this as well. But first of all, I think the best thing I can do is explain what Crossrail is. For those of you that don't know, Crossrail is the largest infrastructure project in Europe. You've heard it from lots of other people telling you that it's the largest single addition to the London transport network for over 50 years. But I think the important thing is the size and complexity of this project. It's going to When we actually finished construction back in 2018, we estimate to be carrying 200 million passengers a year into and out of London. That is to reduce the actual congestion that is actually occurring now here. There's going to be 90 kilometres of surface railways that we're going to be upgrading and improving. But more importantly, from a construction perspective, there's going to be 23 kilometres of a new twin-bore tunnels under London. Now, just to show you this in perspective, here you can see a map of London, and all the lines that are in blue are the overground, and all the red are the ones that we're building the tunnels for. Now, from the project development perspective, there have been lots of challenges. But what I've done here is I've grouped them into these three key areas. There's been a GIS challenge, there's been an engineering challenge, and a personnel challenge as well. So if we start with the first one, the engineering challenges. Now this slide should go through and should rotate through just to show you what we're actually doing. So you can see here we're building up the mapping structure, and as this builds up you can see this is just showing you the constructions that are in place at the moment under London and also above ground as well. So we've got First Capital Connect, which is a railway system coming in. We've got the yellow, which is a circle, a metropolitan line. And we've also got other things such as a post office railway going under London. And all around this, we're trying to fit the Crossrail infrastructure as well. So it's a bit like a 3D jigsaw puzzle. We're trying to fit into already inbuilt or as-built structures. So it is very complex. Now, the GIS challenges, the first one really, or the major one, is the vast array of data we are having to require to store and distribute amongst a project. So we're trying to supply information to all teams on the project, be they planners, engineers, geologists, and of course the public. So we're handling a lot of data and we're having to distribute this to the people in a controlled manner. The third one, the personnel challenge, is actually how we're actually going to get this data to these people and the size of our audience. Now currently, we've got 800 internal users, but we're just coming to the end of the design phase of the project. We're now moving into construction. Moving into construction, the people that we need to get this information to is increasing from the 800 to an estimated 10,000 new users on the project. So we're ramping up how we're going to distribute this information. Now, the scope of this information that we're having to deliver, although we have said we've got 500 plus data sets that we're having to manage, some of these data sets tend to be quite large. I mean, this is just going to go through one of those data sets, which is the Ordnance Survey data set. And as you can see, these are all old Ordnance Survey tiles, but as we zoom in here, you'll start to see these tiles contain a large amount of information. To add more complexity to my problems and to the project I work on, we've also not adopted the national mapping or should we say the mapping transformation matrices that we use in the country, which is normally the OS grid, Ordnance Survey grid. We developed our own one, London Survey Grid, because we wanted to make it more accurate. Now, this has meant creating 16 individual Cartesian survey grids over London. We have to put this into our project. Now, bearing in mind what I've just explained before, we get from the Ordnance Survey, we get 90 million, roughly 90 million records having to be updated every 3 months. But we're also having to transform that from the British National Grid into our London Survey Grid. And of course, the main challenge here for us is that we are dealing in 3D data. We're having to supply. From the onset of this project, we decided that we were going to model the whole project in 3D. So we have to supply our GIS data to the CAD team who are building these models in 3D. So, how do we overcome these challenges? You've seen the challenges. I just want to briefly go over now how we actually overcame them. So, historically, we started with a file-based system. Now, this gave us issues. It locked us into data formats, which led to potentially us trying to manage multiple versions and multiple different data types. So we had Ordnance Survey data for Esri environment, potentially for the Bentley environment, and other GIS environments, which meant we had to manage and control multiple different object types. Putting this now, we took this data and we decided to move it all into a central repository our Oracle spatial database. So it became the single source of truth. It gave us the flexibility to extend it. It freed up our reliance on GIS vendors, gave us speed, and also, more importantly for us, the 3D capabilities. Now, I've put this slide in. Excuse my ignorance, I am actually a software person, I'm a GIS manager, but this is the actual infrastructure we were actually putting it on at the moment. So we have 3 hosted virtual database servers, and these are development, staging, and production. These are sitting on 64 blade servers, and the storage is located on NetApp filer. The important thing here is the development, staging, and production servers. This is what we do here is we have a development server where we do our development, staging server where we push all our data into, fine-tune it, make sure it's exactly how we want, and then we push that straight through to production. So all the way through, we're fine-tuning our data prior to giving it to general consumption. Now, I mentioned before about storing the data. We're using London Survey Grid as our data, or should I say, our well, it's not a projection, it's our Cartesian mapping system. So, improving our accuracy, we're using London Survey Grid. To do this, in the Oracle database, we're setting our SRID to null. So, we're not actually using any projection. We're not holding any projection against the data. We're using an Oracle transformation package we've developed in-house for actually transforming data, any data we get coming in. So we can pull data in from other Oracle databases or other data loads that maybe come in British National Grid, and through our Oracle transformation package, we can transform it into the London Survey Grid. As well as that, we've also developed some SME transformations that allows us to transform data from other forms of map info or Esri shapefiles straight into Oracle Spatial. So, this is what we've developed. This, well, I've called it here the single source of truth. Oracle sits in the middle. We get our data, be it 3D survey data, 3D utility data, environmental data, ordnance survey data. We're sucking the data in there into Oracle Spatial, and we're distributing it out to our GIS teams that are using ArcGIS, Bentley Map, or other GIS applications. And this is a way, from a GI perspective, this is how we're managing our data. So, with this architecture, it has given us the freedom to choose. It increases our flexibility and control. Now, you can see here there's 2 screenshots. One's an Esri screenshot here where we're doing ground maintenance, or shows the ground behavior and geotechnical services, all in 3D. The other one is from the Bentley map here where we're actually looking at the buffering around the actual tunnels and how they relate to the terrain. But, of course, that's all good. That's all very well for the GIS community and dealing with the managing and utilizing 3D data in the GIS community. However, we have to deliver this to the project. We don't want to have to go through a system where we have to educate non-GI personnel or geospatial personnel how to use any of these applications, how to get hold of this data. We need to deliver this to these 800 users, to the 10,000 users, in a way that is useful to them, that minimizes any form of education. Now, to do this, you can see here we've added those 3 extra servers. One's we've called Crossrail Maps, which is our web delivery. The other one is a Bentley product called ProjectWise, which is it's a CAD file management system. And the other one is EB, which is our management system and also our asset register. These are the ways we deliver this data, or through these tools here, it's how we deliver our data to the main Crossrail users. So, mentioned before, Crossrail Maps. This is a single web interface that reads data directly and live from the Oracle Spatial database. So with there's little or no data lag here. I mean, this is live publication of information. There's no pre-caching. So as information goes into the Oracle database, it's immediately available to the users through the web. By the way, that is controlled as well. We're using active desktop security for gaining data access to this information. Now, the other way we deal with it is, what I mentioned before, is project-wise. Here we're using something called the Bentley Oracle Connector. This tool allows us to use, should I say, connecting from the project-wise environment into the Oracle database and create a CAD file for the users. So literally what we're making here, we're making CAD files for the engineers who are used to using CAD applications, but from a GIS database. So I'm going to roll through this here. So if I move through, you can see here the first slide is showing you connecting in. The second slide is saying which database we're going to connect into. The third slide is showing me the layers inside the database, so which Oracle spatial layers I want to do. Next one is showing you the area, so I choose the area I want, and from this creates a CAD file inside ProjectWise, and the CAD user just uses it as a normal CAD object.
Wayne, thank you. This is Mike, folks, and I just wanted to remind you that we'd love to continue to get your questions. So if you have more questions, please send them in. We're going to be getting to the Q&A in just a moment. But Wayne, as long as we're here, let's spend a moment. I know you've got a couple of slides up on this. Talk a little bit about some of your current and expected results, if you will.
Okay. Right. Well, the current expected results, the first thing to mention is the time saving we've had. Since implementing this and the Oracle and the Bentley solutions, we've been able to reduce some of the processing times of the data from what used to take 2 months to 5 days. I mean, it's been a significant improvement. Time saving, it's paid for itself. It stops the duplication of data. We have a single source. This is what we're very pleased with. And of course, as I mentioned before, we can deliver data live to the desktop. I suppose I better as well talk about lessons learned. The first one is hindsight is wonderful. If we'd known about, well, we knew about this, but if we'd started off with what we have now, we would have been a lot further down the line, and we would feel more comfortable. I mean, we're literally playing catch up. Our project is we're delivering the data to the teams, but it's been fun. It's been a lot of hard work, a lot of late nights, but we're there now.
So
the other thing we've looked. Sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
The other thing we've learned is, of course, how to integrate 2D and 3D geospatial into the Crossrail enterprise. I mean, yeah, we can now deliver 2D and 3D on demand to the enterprise. The other lesson we've learned is we need to educate our staff. It's top priority. I'm not talking about the whole of Crossrail. I'm talking about my GI staff. They need to be educated either on how to transform data, how to maybe translate data, but also how to use Oracle. And the other thing we've learned is we keep things simple. Although this is a very complex project, the simpler we keep the data, the easier it is to use later on.
Wayne, I'm looking at the expansion from 800 to 10,000 users, and I know you're going to talk about some of the future developments of GIS. If you could talk about some of the way you're scaling and how you're keeping it simple, I think that would be of great interest to the audience. So why don't you jump into that?
Okay. Well, the scaling side of things, how we're keeping it simple. I mean, this is down. What we're doing is keeping the data structure simple. It'll come more apparent when I start talking about assets and how we're actually structuring the data down. So if we can just leave it till then. But what I really'd like to is you talked about future developments. The the thing that we're looking to do is utilizing more of the 3D capabilities inside Oracle Spatial. We're looking to store the DTM and the DEM data inside the database. We're looking to store the point cloud surveys that we're having done now and also on the as-built. So you can see on that slide there, there's an image of one of the point cloud surveys we've done at a station. And also, as I mentioned just previously, we're also looking to increase or should I say, add asset data capture and maintenance into this infrastructure as well. And again, this is how do we structure our data simply so it can actually fit into that model. So with regards to the 3D subsurface land parcels, this is to do with, mentioned before, the utilization of 3D terrains inside Oracle Spatial. One thing we have to do, we're going to look at, is to capture 3D land parcels derived from the terrain and the top of the tunnel. Now, historically, we've had to use applications to do this, but in the future, what we'd like to do is do this all inside the database, so we can do all our calculations from creating a tin model that we can put inside the database of the top of the tunnel, and also the terrain inside there, and calculate our 3D land parcels, which we need to purchase as part of the route, right, and use that or do all that calculation inside the database. Assets. Now, with assets, this is something we are looking at very heavily at the moment. I mentioned before, we're moving through these different phases: design, construction, and eventually into operation and maintenance. Now, geospatial data is used throughout these phases. Design, of course, we've been designing the actual infrastructure. Construction, building the information. Operation, maintenance, how we're going to look after this infrastructure once it's in place, because it's something that's going to last for centuries, or it's going to be designed to last for centuries. So we've had to keep our data simple. We've had to structure it so it can move through our vision of assets. So how we can keep the GIS data. So in this case, this is our view of our asset information. So GIS data, we have 250,000 objects plus. Now these are physical assets, as-built assets eventually. And this will filter down through into the CAD data assets, which will be 1 million plus objects, moving down into the asset register, where there'll be 5 million plus records. So our data has to be simple enough to move all the way through this structure into the asset register, so we can actually go and search on a building, or truthfully, our vision is to have a system which, for a simple interface, we can move from the GIS data into BIM data through to the asset information. We can query a building. What's in that building? What assets need a change in that building? What assets need updating in that building? Things like that. So, in conclusion, well, the cross approach it's a great GIS story. It's a great success story. We've got a single source of truth, scalable database, it's open, we've got great speed, and also we've got the 3D capabilities. Just to conclude, let's say it's a dynamic, exciting project to work on, and it's one that I'm actually very proud to be working on now and also in the future. Thank you.
Wayne, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Folks, we've got some questions we want to get to, but now I want to ask you to participate in our last poll, and I'm going to go ahead and launch it. And again, choose one of these. Based on what you've learned today from Jim Steiner, Keith Raymond from Bentley, are you more likely to investigate 3D? We'd really be curious. A, it's way ahead of you. I'm already using it extensively. Or you're ahead of us. B, yes. C, maybe. D, no. E, you're not sure. Go ahead and I'll keep the poll open for just a moment. And Nora, thank you for getting those questions to me. I'm going to get to them in just a second, as soon as I get everybody's vote in. And then I'll share the results and we'll see where the audience is on this. So it looks like just about everybody who's going to vote has. So thank you so much for your vote. I'm now going to go ahead and close the poll. And let's share that. So it looks like the number one is B, yes. 56% say yes. Then we have 17% maybe. Tie for way ahead of you. You're already using it, or you're not sure. And 2% said no. Very good. Thank you so much for that information. And as I said at the top of the webinar, if you'd like to get more information and to keep current with all that's happening with Oracle Spatial, if you want to read about white papers or hear from customers, visit oracle.com/go/spatial. And that gives you a great source to learn more about what they're doing with Oracle Database 11G. And then you can also find them on Twitter and on Facebook. So it looks like we're ready for the Ask the Experts panel. I'm now going to invite back Joe and Jim and Keith and Wayne, and let's get started. The first question I have here is for you, Jim. Can the data organized in the database be exploited easily after construction?
The data organized in the database be exploited easily after construction? The answer is, absolutely. That's one of the great benefits, and I think that's what Wayne was actually referring to in this case study, is that at various phases, first you can you can use the data in the design phase, and then it gets moved into the construction phase, and then it gets moved into the maintenance, the analysis phase, and all of that information can be retained in the database. It can be used by analytic tools, business intelligence tools, GIS applications, CAD applications. So absolutely.
Thanks, Jim. Wayne, what would you say was the most significant difference and the most valuable result of using a database-centric approach? If you need me to repeat it, go ahead. I'll be happy to.
What I can gather from that question, I'd say it's the freeing up of the vendor choice, and also I'm probably repeating myself to a certain extent. It becomes a single source of truth. We're not having to manage multiple files. Everything is in one location. It's a lot easier for us.
Great. Here's what I'm going to toss out to the group. Could you please provide the infrastructure needs for a 3D GIS solution for highway traffic management applications? Who'd like to start with that? I would say it sounds like for you, Keith. Do you want to try that one?
Yeah, I could give it a go. I think the question was, can we? And I know that Bentley does provide highway traffic management applications. I myself am not that familiar with them, but there's a whole group within Bentley that does that. There's a number of applications required there. Obviously, at the beginning, I think there is the construct. I think we can look at it as being similar to what we've seen in Crossrail here, the whole construction, design and construction at the beginning, but then taking it later on into the management of the highway, the maintenance of the highway, continuing on. The construction life cycle is generally relatively short. I mean, the Crossrail project, I think Wayne mentioned, is going to wrap up in 2018. So that's, 7 years. But obviously, the transit system is going to be maintained for, indefinitely, really. So you want to be able to take the information that's built through the design phase and construction phase, and then use that in the management of the asset. And that goes with transit systems that we've seen, highways, I think it's the same, buildings, and the rest.
Thanks, Keith. Anybody on the team, in the virtual team, like to add to that?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to, if you could repeat it for a second.
Sure.
There are a few points that might be worth highlighting.
Sure, Jim. The question is, could you please provide the infrastructure needs for a 3D GIS solution for highway traffic management applications?
So, one element to this is, of course, data, right? and being able to have the 3D data products that are available for you to actually manage that, to actually be capturing that and updating that infrastructure. And that is both becoming more available from commercial sources, but if it's a Department of Transportation or something like that, some of the kinds of tools that Bentley has in conjunction with the platform infrastructure that Oracle can provide allows you to capture, store, maintain the 3D design and the 3D infrastructure that you have. That might be some LiDAR content to get the as built. The kind of traffic flow, I mean, that tends to be these days, again, some of that's coming from commercial sources, some of that's coming from sensor data, some of that's coming from historical information that you capture just on traffic patterns, et cetera. And that kind of information can be incorporated and analyzed and evaluated. In fact, there are a number of, Oracle Spatial is used in, I think at the last conference for the DOTs, I think the roll call of states was something like 37 or 38 of the DOTs in the U.S. are using Oracle Spatial as an infrastructure for managing the transportation and the highway system. So I think typically you're going to want some kind of infrastructure for capturing sensor data, whether it's a complex event processing service or other types of mid-tier web-based technology to capture the real-time data, filter, analyze it in the database, and then apply it with the infrastructure information that you might be keeping with tools like Bentley provides. I think those are pieces of the infrastructure, but you have to look a little bit more carefully at the app itself and the use case.
Thanks, Jim. Anybody else on the team want to add to that? Okay. Wayne, here's a question. This is for you specifically. Who did you deal with the various scale of raster data you dealt with when collecting data from different sources? I don't know if I read that right. But I guess the question is about how did you deal with the various scale of raster data you dealt with when collecting data from various sources? There you go.
Yeah. At the moment, we're keeping the raster data out of the Oracle database. We're just keeping it as file-based systems. So we're storing it either as a Bentley format, which is an ITIF, or ECW, or Mr. SID. But we're storing that centrally within either ProjectWise or just standard file servers. It's something that we've kept away from Oracle at the moment.
Great. Keith, here's one for you. We've got just a few moments left, but I'll toss it your way. Question is, I read in Directions last month that you have restructured and simplified your product suite in recognition of the importance of 3D data. So can you explain why you did this and what you think it will mean to most of us who use 2D data, who use 2D systems?
Yes, that is a recent event, I guess, from Bentley. That was primarily to consolidate a number of products into, I think, a simpler product line, but also to introduce some new 3D capabilities. And we talked about it briefly here. There's some of the analytical tools, some modeling tools, some 3D texture mapping to get make the building models more realistic by being able to map photographs onto the buildings themselves. How does it relate to 2D? I think from the 2D user's point of view, everything is pretty much as it was. All of those products can access Oracle Spatial. Certainly 2D. The lower end really deals with 2D only from a read-only point of view. But it, I think, provides in the same environment the capability to get into 3D. So within Bentley products, 2D and 3D are really, it's just another, I guess it's a bad pun, but it's just another dimension. All of the tools that work on the data are really the same. So hopefully for the 2D user, you'll be able to adopt 3D technologies much easier. It's not a different environment that you have to work with.
Thanks, Keith. Well, we're just about getting ready to wrap up and give you some final housekeeping, but I wanted to thank, in particular, Wayne from Crossrail, Keith, and of course Jim Steiner from Oracle. But Jim, as our sponsor, any closing comments you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I'll make two. One is I want to thank Wayne as well. I love this project, and I love this story. I just think it's exciting and fabulous. And the second one is we're having our user conference in Washington, D.C. this year at the Ronald Reagan Center on May 19th, and we'd like to see as many of the audience there as possible.
Thanks, Jim. So, folks, you're going to be receiving a short survey in just a moment. We'd really love for you to take a moment and give us your feedback on how today's webinar met your expectations. A copy of today's webcast will be available, and you'll be getting an email with the link to it shortly. And specific thanks to my colleague Nora Parker, who's our senior managing editor, for all of her tireless behind-the-scenes collaboration and work to get this webinar together. We really appreciate it, Nora. Thank you so much. And as your moderator, this is Mike Agron saying thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it when you take your time and you join us for these webinars. We love putting them on. And speaking of webinars, we hope to see you in the next one in the series. And as we always say, be sure to tell a friend about Directions Media. Have a great rest of the week, and bye for now.